Don't be scared now, but it looks like you just wandered straight into U-Mind country. That's U-Mind, short for unaffiliated mind games, and you ain't never gonna be the same again. Brace yourself. It's time for a red-hot truth injection. Oh yeah! That's right, bitch. We're rounding up the sheeple and shaking them awake. You mind? Too damn bad. We're gonna set fire to the wool over your eyes. Feel the burn, baby. Hot damn. We're toppling the lies of the lamestream media one by one. Woo-wee. Watch them bad boys fall. Hey, Universe A. This is Universe B calling, and we're gonna tear you a new one. You mind?
Okay, hey everybody. Welcome back to the U Mind. And I'm here with a very special guest this evening. His name is Gerald?
No, it's Gerald.
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 Hi,
Yeah.
Gerald. Gerald has a fascinating story of romance to share with all of you at home.
Gerald Jenkins. And I feel that I'm underrepresented
Mm-hmm.
in the romance world because I am a spectresexual. It's real, and my lady love is a ghost.
Well, that is fascinating. So, I guess the first question on my mind is how did you two meet?
Funny story, actually. I was at a Civil War reenactment that I go to often in Georgia, and I've always felt very attuned to the spirit world.
Mm-hmm.
And while on break, we were staying at this lovely plantation, and I just saw this beautiful woman just walking through the halls, and usually not one to approach a lady.
Hmm.
I just felt so compelled, and just fell in love as soon as I saw her gaunt face.
That's truly a tale of romance for the ages. So, how did you first recognize that she was, in fact, no longer among the living?
Largely because I could see through her.
Ah.
It's Blanche, who is my lady love.
Mhm.
Not technically my first spectral experience.
Mhm.
I have dated a handful of ghostly women before in the past. So I'm familiar with the difficulties of dating women who are um
Ethereal.
ethereal.
Yeah.
Their preferred term is living disabled.
Mm.
As they are still sentient beings, mostly on this plane of existence, but just can't always interact directly with it.
Oh, I see. I see. Well, that is fascinating. Now, as a young boy, did you recognize that you were a spectrosexual?
I always kind of felt a little different than
Mm-hmm.
than most children, uh, but it was really when I saw as a young man of 12, and I saw Ghostbusters for the first time,
Mm.
and I really felt, yeah, I get it. Um, the sexual chemistry between Ray and the ghost. I felt finally represented. I felt like I finally seen myself on the screen.
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember that scene. And I feel like because of societal standards that they
Mm,
cut it too
so
early.
prudish.
It really is. It really is. I think that people just need to wake up to the fact that there's more dating options than just humans or corporeal
There's
humans.
there's a lot of men and women
Hmm.
out there who are just completely just looked through
Mm-hmm.
because they're just not seen as a viable option for romantic partners. And I'm here to tell you that they are very capable lovers and really maybe soulmates in the most literal version.
Very much, very much. Now, I guess let's get a little racy here.
Okay.
Can you describe the intimate process that one takes on?
Several options
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to being intimate
Mm-hmm.
with a spectral partner. Maybe the most common is for their energies to enter your body.
Okay.
Um, it's kind of like in the science fair when there's that little static bulb and
Mm-hmm.
you touch it and the little electricity just
Oh, okay.
flies to your
Yeah.
fingers and
Yeah.
gives you little tingles. It's kind of like that, but all over.
Mm.
Um, the another option is if you're polyspectresexual
Oh my.
and you find a third willing donor
Mm-hmm.
who is willing to donate their body to the relationship, your spectral lover will possess that person
Mm.
for a more traditional sexual experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fascinating.
Mm.
Now, do you have any hobbies that you like to do? Maybe pottery, things like that.
Um, I mean, as I had mentioned, I'm big in the Civil War
Oh yes.
reenactment, and it's kind of funny. I actually got into that because I was also very big into the paranormal,
Uh-huh.
which all just kind of stems off of my preferred preference.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just found that there's a lot of the older buildings, especially in the South and in the northeastern areas. They happen to just inhabit the most spectral bodies. So I found myself among those other communities
Mm-hmm.
and found a family among them.
Oh, that's very nice. Very
Mm.
nice indeed. Now, do you find that I know living as a human, or essentially, I know that the prejudice is real here, but on the other side, do they respond in kind to a specter dating a human partner?
It's still it is taboo
Mm.
in both circles. Certainly, my lady love Blanche does get her own share of heat from the spectral community
Hmm.
about crossing the veil and dating a
Right.
corporeal person such as myself. And they kind of feel that specters should date other specters or ghosts,
Okay. Yeah. That's a
just to
shame.
yeah, just to because no one understands a ghost like another ghost, they say. But
Mm.
I say different. I think a life experience is a life
That's
experience.
true. That's true. I think that's very close-minded, and I'm sorry to hear that you've been put through such a thing. Now, I do have some pressing questions
Mm-hmm.
that I would like to ask you, and that is, can the listeners at home, how can they start communicating with the dead? Now, you are capable of seeing ghosts, and
Yes.
I'm told that that's fairly unusual. But if someone's interested,
I mean, unusual might be a little harsh.
okay,
It is maybe different.
okay,
But yes, I was born with a natural sense to see the other side
mm-hmm.
and the occupants thereof. Um, but if someone was interested in exploring their sexuality beyond the corporeal, then I would suggest perhaps meditation
Okay,
to expand your energies out into the world and start feeling out for the other energies that are also inhabiting the semi-plane that is just a shoot off of our normal material plane. The old-fashioned Ouija board is just like a telephone
oh wow,
to the specters and ghosts on the other side. Uh, I, in fact, use the Ouija board often to connect with farther relatives of Blanche. I try and meet her family as well,
Oh,
and
that's nice.
yeah, and I mean my family is not so accepting of my
I
lifestyle.
see.
So to be accepted among her family is nice. And just crystals. There are many crystals out there that will
Oh.
harmonize your energies, and through practice and an open mind, you will begin to see more than what the normal eye will see.
Mm. Well, that's excellent. Now you, I've been watching in research for this. There's a lot of ghost shows, a lot of paranormal shows that are on the air, and a lot of techniques that they use on there, like electric voice phenomenon, things like that. Do you find those to be invasive? Do you think those are
Oh,
helpful?
so
Yeah.
much, so much. If a ghost or a specter or a living impaired entity
Mm-hmm.
wants to be seen or show themselves to someone, they will. These so many just arrogant scientists with
Mm-hmm.
their technology, they're so intrusive, trying to well, it's like if someone went into your house
Mm-hmm.
and then yelled through your living room trying to get your attention.
It's not
They're
romantic.
No, not at all, and
Mm-hmm.
it's invasive.
Mm-hmm.
They're still living there too. Um, and these ghost hunters, they just come in and just throw their machinery all over the place
Mm.
and start just calling out to whomever they please, and then with no consideration for the ghosts that are just trying to live out their own life.
It's true. I'd really like to see some laws put in place to protect spectral entities from that
Mhm.
kind of invasion. But I feel like we're maybe not that evolved as a,
Certainly
you
not.
know.
And there's just not a lot of other spectral sexuals who feel comfortable enough to come out
Mhm.
and be public, which is why I really appreciated the chance to come on the show here,
Oh,
so I
absolutely.
could bring this to people's attention and let them know that yes, we're out there. No, we're not a joke, and it's a completely viable way to find your soulmate.
I think it adds a lot of hope, really, because just the dating pool has grown that much more.
Yeah, absolutely. They say there's someone for everyone,
Hmm.
but maybe that someone just isn't currently alive.
That's true.
Maybe they used to be, and just all that lifetime lived between their corporeal time and
Hmm.
then their ethereal time thereafter. Oh, Blanche has just the most amazing stories.
Oh, well, would you care to share a few with us?
She remembers, as she told me, a time in the early 1900s when a young family moved into her home,
Hmm.
which is always a little awkward at first.
Mm.
Um, more or less, just getting all the energies of the new family and the old family to kind of jive together. But she said that to try and get their attention, uh, she would just make little mentions of her presence. To completely apparate would certainly blow minds,
Oh, yes.
and just scare people off. So you start with the little things, leaving cabinet doors open,
Mhm.
um, footsteps outside in the hallways. Um, and the family at first were very apprehensive,
Mm.
but really came around to even allowing their daughter to cross over in a corporeal form
Mhm.
through a gateway, which is very rare and difficult, but it happens. And
Well, that is absolutely fascinating. I in the film Beetlejuice, I believe that there is a scene like that. Would you say that it's something similar where you draw a door and then knock 3 times?
Yeah, that's the most common way.
Ah,
You use a kosher chalk
okay.
to draw your door, always with the knob on the right. never on the left.
What happens if it's on the left?
It just doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Always on the right, and then knock 3 times, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And that will give you entry into the ethereal world.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. Growing up, that movie was a big inspiration to me, and personally, I always felt that Beetlejuice and Lydia belonged together.
Mm.
And it just really warms my heart to know that there are couples that are pursuing those relationships, and there's such a stigma in, as we had discussed. And now portrayals of ghosts in the media
Mm.
and films. How do you feel about that? What are some positive representations, and what are some ones that really upset you and are detrimental to the cause?
The ones that upset me are definitely the ones that we see most of the time. These haunting movies
Mm,
where someone is their family is terrorized or something, or possession by evil spirits or
mm,
the devil. Um, it's it's really it's just a couple bad eggs ruining the bunch.
it is. Yeah.
Every community's got them. Just a couple rascals out there, just uh, up to no good and making a bad name for all of us. But if you really want to see a good portrayal of a spectral sexual relationship,
Hmm.
the movie Ghost actually gets it pretty right.
Nice.
Yeah. In fact, Blanche was the spirit consultant on that
Oh,
film.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And told me that
I think that's a shame that she wasn't credited, though.
yeah, it's tough to sign a contract when you don't have a
Oh,
physical form.
yeah.
And, Hollywood will just, take advantage of any situation they can.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
true. So, I guess give us a little idea in preparation for the hereafter. Does it work sort of like here? Do you have to have a job? Is there a financial system, or is it just really much?
Speaking about the other side,
Oh, yes.
um, if there's more to be taken from Beetlejuice, is that the other side does have a very structured community,
Hmm.
but without all the drawbacks of the corporeal world. They no longer need to eat, but do still enjoy to do so. By either letting the food just move through their apparitions and just absorbing the flavor through their
Hmm.
energies, or inhabiting a body and eating as well. Uh, but there is still a sense of community among the spectral world, and there are definitely laws in place that keep the other side in order. Otherwise, just a bunch of incorporeal people just out there doing willy nilly. It would certainly cause chaos.
Oh, absolutely. Now, you had talked about the invasive quality of humans entering a spirit's domain.
Hmm.
I guess, conversely, I guess one of the fears that I've had since I was young was that ghosts were watching me masturbate. And is that a real fear, or is there sort of a sense of decorum in that community?
I mean, fear, it would matter on your perspective.
Hmm.
Um, I could understand. It may feel a little invasive.
Hmm.
But if you think about the fact that every creature, every creature in the world has a spirit, and once their corporeal body passes, their energies become spirits and move into the ethereal plane. So for every um, creepy subway masturbator there are in the material plane, there's probably his spiritual counterpart on the other side. Yes, um, imagine it's pretty factual that anytime you're masturbating, somebody is watching.
Uh-huh.
But just imagine, instead of being afraid or feeling intruded upon,
Hmm.
just think that you're sharing that experience with someone who can't really feel it for themselves anymore. The energy in the room just really lights up, and other spectral entities will kind of ride that wave.
And that's beautiful,
Mm.
actually. Yeah, I really hadn't thought about it that way before. But now, do you and Blanche have any plans for when you cross over?
Yeah. When I eventually step to the other side,
Mm-hmm.
we're probably gonna move back into her plantation where we first met, which seems appropriate. Where we'll spend our eternal lives thereafter, and probably just live our lives out, meeting new people as the property there continues to turn over living occupants,
Mm-hmm.
and perhaps maybe look to take this opportunity while I am still among the living to expand people's minds and let them just comprehend that you can also be in love with a man or woman that has no physical form. And maybe by the time when I do pass, it'll be much more commonplace for uh, specters to have more rights in the physical world.
Mm. Now, are there websites or energy circles, anything like that? Is there sort of like a spectral Tinder that one can go to?
Unfortunately, not. Although I do think that's a pretty good idea.
Mm-hmm.
The difficulty with that though is that spectral energies don't interact very well with
Mm.
electronics,
I see.
so they have a hard time swiping right.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it tends to just fritz out.
Yeah.
Um, so it's very old fashioned
Mm-hmm.
to jump into the dating scene when you're spectral sexual, and it's a lot about just going out and meeting people in the places that they congregate,
Hmm.
graveyards and whatnot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So, is there sexual boundaries the way that there are with corporeal beings? Is there homosexuality among the ghost community, or how?
There are a handful that hold on to their old mentalities
Yeah,
where they decide, well, they're just gonna stay homosexual, or they will stay straight,
yeah.
whatever they were in life. But the more open-minded spirits, typically the ones who have just been around longer, they see more than just a binary gender. They
Hmm.
see a spirit and a pure energy, and they will also see that within our corporeal bodies. They'll see the spirit, if you will, but the energy inside. And that energy has no gender.
That's true.
It's a lot about just getting over what you knew in life and discovering all the possibilities of the unlife.
Hmm. That's really wonderful. Now, I do want to maybe ask a few nitty gritty details, that kind of thing.
Okay, okay.
Now, is it possible to get a ghost pregnant?
No, at least not that I know of. Fingers crossed.
Mm.
Um, but there is definitely the chance when your spiritual mate inhabits another body.
Yes.
All of the normal protection and consent is definitely still just as important. Um, and in those donor body
Mhm.
situations, whether they are just a third party person who enjoys the experience of giving their body over, or if it is in a poly relationship. Um, it always needs to be understood what everyone's desires are. If Blanche would one day like to be a mother,
Mhm.
we would have to find a surrogate.
Okay, I understand that. So, well, that's very interesting. So, are there any diseases that one can contract or give to a ghost?
Uh, yeah, I believe there is there is one kind of a spiritual STD,
Mm.
if you will, that doesn't affect your physical being so much, but just kind of rots your energies
Mm.
from the inside.
That's terrible.
Um, the common name for it is the heebie-jeebies, and it's a constant feeling of kind of tingles on your spine.
Mm.
And if you kind of get this sensation, especially when other spectral beings are around, it gives you the sense of like the hair standing on edge and whatnot. It's not so much bad for your health, but very inconvenient for living.
Mm.
And it is a transmitted disease that can only be given from ghost to corporeal body. The ghosts, being living energies, are immune to all of our diseases.
Now, is there any way to rid yourself of it once contracted?
Uh, I think really there's no real cure for it. Perhaps a spiritual cleansing could help. But it's also just I feel it's an opportunity to explore more about yourself, and really jump headlong into it, and realize that you can be impacted by beings that have no physical body. It's like a first step into a larger world.
Hmm. Well, that's wonderful to know. That I mean, truly, it just proves that love never dies. So,
Absolutely not, and
yeah,
here's hoping it never does.
yeah. Now, I myself am in a mixed relationship. My not official girlfriend is a demon.
Mm.
So, yeah, and
Well,
there,
good for you.
yeah, it's nice. Some girls are a demon in a sack, and she's just
All the
yeah, all
time.
the time. It's great. So I really enjoy the chance to connect with people like you, connect with people who are kind of going through that, who have an understanding of.
Mhm.
I've really never been attracted to humans myself. Yeah,
They're just so, sticky.
I agree. Yeah, there's a stickiness and all the odors and
Yeah.
fluids and yeah. Well, my first girlfriend, Kirsten, she was a Wendigo and
Mm.
she was a great cook. But things didn't work out. They're a little temperamental. Are there different type of specters in?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember, an entity that I dated, maybe 5 years ago,
Hmm.
um, met out in, Massachusetts and, thought just, "Wow, what a great gal this one
Hmm.
is." Uh, and, you know how sometimes people, they just start to change once they get comfortable with you and they start opening up more and more and more. Turns out she's, less of a kind spirit, and more of a poltergeist.
Oh dear.
Yeah, she would go into fits of rage often, throwing my antique figurines, across the
Oh
room and, just smashing them to bits, and they are not easy to get a hold of and not cheap.
no.
Um, and it's very difficult, to break up with someone, when they can just follow you everywhere at all
Yeah.
times. Yeah, that was a tough 2 years of trying to first, make it work.
Hmm.
I always want to give a chance.
It's
Open
patient.
communication
Yeah.
is always good. She's going through her things, and I'm going through mine. Um,
You never
but
know where someone's at in there.
yeah, but once she possessed me without my consent,
Mm,
and that's a hard line for me. I will not tolerate it,
yeah.
and I had to move.
Ah, I see. I see. Now, that is one of the things that I was wondering about. Is when you do wish to end a relationship with a specter, how do you go about it? Is I hate to use the E word, but is exorcism an option?
I mean, in the most dramatic or extensive of situations,
Mhm.
much like my ex, Linda was her name.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yes, sometimes it has to come to that. Sometimes just a communication and an understanding. That's always the outcome you hope for. And sometimes just a simple cleansing of the home,
Hmm.
salting of your windows and doors so they can't invade your home anymore. And then eventually, like, most beings, they get the message.
Oh, okay. Or that they move on
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
And I certainly hope that Linda has found the sentient being that makes her happy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hope so too. It's sometimes things just don't work out in those kind of
Mm.
relationships. Now, you had mentioned poltergeists. How does one, while they're living, prevent themselves from becoming a poltergeist or a wraith or one of the less desirable spectral forms?
It's a lot about the life you live
Hmm.
while in your corporeal body. Um, once you pass through the veil, you're very much the same person that you were when you had a body. So that baggage and if you lived a life full of anger, those things carry through.
Mm.
And there's certainly a lot of frustration in the transition of life to unlife, where people who just don't have the tools to understand their own emotions definitely tend to lash out. And once you're a being of just energy, you are really capable of a lot of damage to other
Hmm.
other spiritual beings as well as the corporeal world. So those in life who consistently make bad choices, have hate in their hearts, they're typically doomed to
Yeah.
a unlife
Mm.
of misery.
Ah, I see. Now, I've waited on this question. I wanted to wait till we got to know each other a little bit better,
Oh, okay.
because this might be a little bit touchy.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like you to describe that moment when you tried to introduce Blanche to your parents, to your family.
Wow, it was it was definitely tough. I had already been out to my parents, explaining to them that the corporeal body just doesn't attract me at all,
Hmm.
and I'm looking for a connection on another level, and they just refuse to see it. They in fact still they came over a hurdle, but for a while didn't even believe in ghosts,
Oh, geez.
and just thought I was talking out
Hmm.
into the air, and just spending too much time by myself. But they just weren't willing to open their eyes and see that I was out there finding love. But the first time that I brought Blanche over, I invited my parents over for dinner, and it was very uncomfortable for quite a while. Even Blanche was nervous. She really couldn't apparate
Okay.
in front of them, because just the vibes that they were putting off, very
I
judgmental,
see.
very negative, which can affect other energy beings as
Yeah.
specters and ghosts. Um, and Finally, once she did, mother just didn't really say anything after that.
Mm.
And my father gave me a very stern look, which I've seen before, and I know it to mean that he's just not going to invite me to Christmas that year.
Oh, I see. It's
Yeah,
it's always tough when it's not the anger so much that gets to you, but when they say like, "I'm disappointed in you."
yeah,
Yeah, that's.
yeah. The guilt
Hmm.
of disapproving your parents is always just maybe just a little worse than just the shouting itself.
Hmm.
It gets you on another level.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Um, there's a couple stereotypes that I want to address that I'm not sure if are known in the ghost world, but I'm sure
Hmm.
you would understand. Sheets.
Ooh, yeah, no,
Yeah,
we do not use that word.
yeah, yeah.
No, no, no. It is very derogatory.
Mm.
And nobody seems to understand why it ever got attached. Certainly, no specter ever just looks like a floating blanket.
Mm-hmm.
But because it became a word so connected with vile and just hatred.
Mm-hmm.
And when you put those words out, that's a negative energy
That's
that
what you
that
attract.
they feel,
Yeah.
and it hurts the spectral community. And so it's just a word that is just unacceptable.
Mm,
Unacceptable.
I see. Chains.
Chains?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Like Jacob Marley, for instance, who I've always found terribly attractive.
Mm.
Do you actually wear a chain in death that is symbolic of your misdeeds in life?
There are some specters who really like to lean hard into the literary representations,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find themselves. Much like in our corporeal lives,
Oh,
we go
sure.
through trends and fashion.
Yeah,
Every
goth in
other
high
year.
school kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're just constantly trying to find yourself. Same goes once you move on to your unlife. You're rediscovering who you are. And so there are definitely chain gangs, as we call them,
Mm.
and they like to travel together, and they weigh themselves down with these heavy irons that really. If you ask me, and Blanche kind of clued me into it, it's just their guilt from their corporeal life
Mm-hmm.
that's just they just can't let go,
Yeah.
and so they manifest that in this fashion.
No, that's a shame.
Mm.
Yeah. You would hope people can get over it. Are there any spectral therapists that could possibly?
Oh, the best.
Yes. Oh,
The the
wonderful.
the, the best. Again, because every spiritual creature then moves through the veil and becomes an energy. They're on into the unlife. So all of the best therapists who have, in fact, passed, find their way back into the profession that they love so much in life, to help those who are also trying to transition, who are also trying to find themselves. Yeah, like Freud is still
Oh.
very popular. Um,
Now, would you
the
say his theories have been modified at all?
Not enough, if you ask me.
Mm.
That's kind of the drawback. Is the entire spiritual community is always about 10 to 20 years behind,
Okay.
because of the time it takes to transition and to kind of refine yourself,
Sure.
and then you have to the being a spirit, being an energy for so long, then to find your new way, holding on to so many old ideas. Uh, Freud's mostly just popular because of name.
Mm.
Um, Still kind of got mommy issues,
Yeah.
if you ask
Yeah.
me. Uh, but he's still out there, still examining the mind, which is just even in our corporeal bodies is just electric synapses going off a million a second.
Hmm.
Our very minds, as we think of them, are more than just the gray matter inside of our skulls. It's the energy, and that energy is what moves on beyond your physical form.
Mm. That's wonderful. I'm really happy to hear that. Now, are there any things that one should be cautious of if they're looking to attract that special someone from the afterlife? Things that will really be turnoffs.
Um, hmm, Turn offs. I think it's always maybe a good rule of thumb, never to date anybody more than 100 years older than you.
Okay.
Um, they're typically just from a different world, and your
Hmm.
social views aren't always the same.
Yeah.
Um, it happens sometimes that if the spirits just don't quite acclimate to their new unlife, they do get kind of crabby, just all the time, and are just difficult to be around.
Yeah.
Um, Also, if you don't like history,
Oh.
definitely a good idea not to jump into the spectral dating pool, because it's kind of all they have to talk about.
Yeah, I could see that. Are there any things that I hope I'm not going to get you in trouble here, but
Okay,
any
okay.
things that you and Blanche don't see eye to eye on?
Um, hmm.
Well, I know in my relationship, I'm dating my boss's daughter,
Mm.
sold my soul, and kind of one thing led to another, and he's not really appreciative of my interference. I think he had plans for her.
Oh,
Yeah, well,
kind of steering her off the
yeah.
track that the parents put on their children.
And I just, you had said Blanche is from the Civil War, so
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe are they're just ignoring the whole issues of the Civil War, just decorum and the way that one socially conducts themselves. Are there ever times where she just thinks that you're just being way too ribald, or that you're not addressing her in a way of respect, or has she learned to?
I definitely had to learn to speak with her as she is accustomed to.
Hmm.
I was I feel I was not quite giving it an authentic try. But once she kind of sat me down and spoke to me and really taught me more about that
Hmm.
period in time, I felt I came to learn more about her by her telling me where she came from.
Right.
I understood that a Southern Belle is something to be proud of, and in no way should be used in any kind of derogatory sense. A
Right.
Southern Belle is a beautiful woman
Mhm.
who just is the utmost of excellence in her community.
Yes, and there's a certain romance to the antebellum era. How does she feel about films like Gone with the Wind, or is that a big turn off for her to see that?
Oh, she was real happy once she started seeing forms of representation
Hmm.
of her time
Yeah.
on television. She hasn't been so keen on the representation of her descendants since
Yeah.
the stereotypes of the Southern woman.
Honey Boo Boo, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not a fan, she says.
Mm.
She feels a woman should always hold herself up to the classiest of standards,
Mm.
and apparently, spaghetti and ketchup just doesn't do it.
No, no. Oh, I could see that. I could see that. Well, that is fascinating. That's it's wonderful to have had this chance to talk to you.
Mm.
Are there any words of wisdom that you would like to leave our audience with this evening?
I would definitely say if you feel an energy in the room, be open to it. Be willing to express yourself to that energy. It may very well be the soulmate you've been looking for.
It's true. It's I've always wondered about that. It's they say there's someone for everyone, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
What if that someone dies before you're born?
Yeah,
And that's
and it's never too late.
it's never too late. And
Nope.
I think that's really the takeaway from this. Thank you so much, Gerald.
Well, thank you, Napoleon. I appreciate being able to come onto your show and to speak more about me and my community.
And thank you, Blanche, wherever you might be.
She says thank you.
Oh, very nice. All right, guys. Thanks very much for listening. Bye.
Bye, everybody. I just want, for some reason, I just wanted to say the heebie-jeebies, and then it's just way goofy.
Just roll with it if you want.
But it's, all right, fuck it.